It is... It is Boshy time, yes indeed. It is a fan game, or a parody, of I Wanna Be the Guy, which is a parody in itself in the first place. So what does that mean is... It is a genuinely really difficult game, as in... It has some troll moments in it where you just need to know what is happening in order to avoid dying. But since restarting is so quickly, you press the button and you're instantly back in the game, and 5 seconds later you're at the place where you died. It is actually not that much of a big problem, it's just kind of, to the common person who considers death to be a failure state, it is kind of frustrating, I might imagine. But in fact, death in I Wanna Be the Boshy is not a failure. It is a learning state. The speedrun is, by the way, done. Most common speedruns are done on average mode, because that allows you to do some scripts. Easy mode is... well, easy mode. It has additional blocks that help you, bosses only have half health, and you don't get the final reward at the end. So totally average mode is the standard mode. Hard on mode is more difficult, it has basically just half the amount of saves compared to average mode. That's about it. It was my first playthrough on harder mode, and in my opinion that was the correct experience to have with this game. Because it balances out between boss difficulty and a platforming difficulty pretty well. Then this one not so nicely named difficulty. It has one save point at the beginning and one at the end. I've done one complete playthrough of this, which took me a long time. Well then, let's get this started. I need to set up my keybinds. You can call the keybinds with Ctrl Y. And here we go. Our average mode of I Wanna Be the Boshy. The character I'm using is called Dark Boshy. Dark Boshy is the character you unlock if you beat the game on the hard difficulty, unlocking all the extra items. So it's an extra character that you don't have unlocked from the beginning. The reason why people choose to run it with this character is he is the most balanced of all, and it's easiest to hit bosses with his large bullets. He doesn't deal any more damage. All the bullets you shoot always deal exactly 1 damage no matter what. But the difference is that he has larger bullets, which makes it much more convenient to actually hit bosses. Plus, his hitbox is looking correct, as in all characters have the exact same hitbox. It's an actual triangle shape, by the way. It's not a square, as you might imagine. It's an actual triangle. What happens here is I'm resetting to get the correct cycle on this spike wall, which allows me to just run through instead. So all of those reset tricks, those were developed over time by the group of speedrunners that just ran this game over and over again. All the smooth strategies through the rooms, they have not always been there. And I was one of those people that just kind of started developing all those smooth strategies, since there was essentially nothing when I arrived in the speedrunning sphere for I Wanna Be the Boshy. In fact, I didn't even realize I could speedrun Boshy until I did a lot of tech work, so to speak, to improve the speedrun, and to do that you need to be reasonably good at Boshy in the first place, and also do stuff. So, you can have, by the way, at most 5 bullets on screen to shoot. By the way, volume warning, this is going to be relatively loud as soon as I step to the right here. That's a jump scare. In case you are not dealing well with jump scare, you may want to turn down the volume. I give you a few seconds for that. Okay, it's going to happen 3 more times in the run. Oh yeah, it's just for people that are not dealing well with jump scares, by the way. I actually kind of like watching people's reactions to the jump scare, but I feel like if people are not really in here for watching the troll amount of Boshy from a casual playthrough, it's fair to warn them. It's also kind of loud. So, here we have the first boss, Hello Kitty. The good speedrunners, have developed a strategy to do a quick kill on the Hello Kitty, which I have not learned yet, and that in fact was pretty much the end of my trying to keep up with the good speedrunner career, because the quick kill requires you to shoot while jumping and do all kinds of different shenanigans, which again, that is kind of difficult. In fact, this is one of the more difficult bosses to defeat in a speedrunning settings, interestingly enough. Even casually, I guess, it's one of the more difficult bosses, despite being the first boss. And I messed up again. So what the quick kill does is it allows you to kill Hello Kitty. Oopsie. It allows you to kill Hello Kitty before she goes into his final phase, before this entire attack cycle resets. And by the way, because you have only 5 bullets on screen, or you can only have 5 bullets on screen, it is actually kind of important that I don't miss any bullets while attacking her. I miss bullets, that is wasted damage, and I cannot shoot any more bullets until way later. You can kill her before this attack here specifically. If you manage to do that, that is essentially the quick kill. Because if you try to kill her while that attack is going on, she will not stop spawning those heart-shaped bullets. The screen is shaking, it's ridiculously hard to avoid them, and there's a reasonably high chance that you will die. And that was the first boss. And here we have an introduction to World 2. World 2 is the longest world, straight up, as in without any main bosses in between, to the next world. And it's also one of the most difficult worlds to complete on the hardest difficulty. I think this world probably took me the longest out of all of them. There we go. Oh. Or not. Getting through those spikes is actually kind of difficult. Once again, this game has a lot of genuine difficulty. You might consider it unfair difficulty, but in this section it's kind of straight up. You need to do the platforming correctly. Also, it has weird gimmicks like this one, where the screen is just turning. And that is, well, the gimmick of this. As long as you jump properly and you know what you're doing, it's not a problem. Also here, once again, cheap difficulty in the sense that you need to know what happens. 2 things. First, the spike here, you need to activate it first before it comes in. Second, you cannot go to the right here, otherwise you just straight up die. And greetings, Zebe, how are you doing, sir? And also greetings to anyone else who has recently joined. No, we are by the way in the Kirby world. All of those worlds are shaped after some other video games. So that's kind of what happens there. I'm not taking the most optimal strategies, even though I developed many of them. Because, well, I have not played this game in a long time, especially not on a speedrun level, so I'm just taking it a bit slow. So the gimmick of this section is, by the way, you cannot release the jump button, otherwise you will not have your double jump for this section over here, where you need it. Landing on this cloud here, dead. Don't do that. Then we have a mini-boss here, Krako. Krako, he goes invulnerable after you hit him a certain amount of times in a, well, in each individual phase. So that means, once I hit him about 2 more times now, he will go invulnerable. Oh, what? Why did that hit me? I think I messed up. Whatever. He will go invulnerable and you can no longer hit him. So you can only hit him a certain amount of times per cycle. If I do it correctly, I will get the quick kill as soon as he swoops down back on the left side of the screen. The stars on the top are random how they fall. Alright, that was easy enough. And there we go. By the way, this section here is really difficult until you practice it a fair bit. Jumping over here, weaving down past the spikes and then jumping back up. That is really difficult to do. If you've never done that before, kind of tricky. Also, by the way, those jumpy thingies, those springs, will always jump you or spring you up the same distance. So what you need to do is you need to jump to, well, double jump in the air more specifically to not get hit by those springs into the spikes. It's kind of weird timing. Shoutouts to Man vs. Game, I still have not updated the game yet. It's a long time that is. So there is also this guy here, Big Kirby. How you avoid him is you just go into the back last screen and you wait down here. There is a Kirby skip, by the way, another jump screen, another spider here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go. There's a Kirby skip there where you can jump over the Kirby, but it's really precise and it requires a setup. I have no idea how the setup works, I've never done it myself. That was basically one of those things speedrunners added well, long after I stopped running this game. I optimized more the how you approach puzzles and stuff like that. And here we go, we have another mini-boss in this guy. Jump, left, right. Jump, left, right. This guy here, it's basically Simon Says. Right, jump, down. If you are really good at mashing and jumping, attack right, down, left. Attack right, down, left. If you're really good at jumping and mashing, you can kill him on the third cycle reasonably well. I'm not that good anymore. Jump, jump, attack, right. Jump, jump, attack, right. You can even do this a bit earlier, starting with the cycle. But I'm really bad at Simon Says actually. Really bad. So I just take it a bit slower. So here's another fun fact. You cannot go to the right here, but you can jump up here by just squeezing through this. Then you can go to the right. But that's not necessary, you can go through here anyways. We save, and you may have heard the Hadouken. And here's another thing. You can skip intro cutscenes by pressing S, otherwise that would take a long time. Good speedrunners kill or attack Rai on the left side, that will allow them to get in more shots way quicker. I have not practiced that whatsoever. That was not a thing when I was playing, so to speak. Also, you may notice, I'm only shooting 3 bullets. Why am I only shooting 3 bullets? When I said that the maximum amount on screen is 5. So here's the thing. In reality, I'm actually shooting 5 bullets. In fact, I'm shooting double bullets. Oopsie. In Boshy, if you hit up and shoot at the exact same frame, you shoot a bullet twice. So the first 2 bullets are actually double bullets, and if they hit, they do 2 damage instead of 1. That is not intended, as you may be able to imagine, and it's a really weird thing. So, as I mentioned earlier, I've been a glitch researcher, applier, whatever, of this game since quite a while. That is the quick kill, by the way. Until, I don't know, halfway into the speedrunning life of Boshy, we had no idea this double shot glitch existed. We knew about a different glitch that happens when you release jump and then shoot at the same frame. And that shoots an additional bullet 1 frame afterwards. Oh, by the way, let's get into a Pokemon fight. Ghastly is a secret companion that you can catch if you got a secret item earlier. That is the awesome sauce. If you are awesome enough, you weaken Ghastly, then you can catch him. And he is going to be a companion which once in a while shoots an additional bullet, which is quite nice. So that's what Ghastly does. So either way, with the double shot, it's kind of like many things in I Wanna Be the Boshy speedrunning. Something that seemed to be completely useless suddenly became useful. So, we knew about the jump release double shots since a long time, but it was kind of unreasonable to use that to any, well, severe extent to actually take advantage of it. However, after a while, I saw Stinky Cheese 1, who started speedrunning this, get a really quick kill on Mario, which is the next boss. So the interesting thing about that was, he managed to get insane damage in, and I just thought, wow, he must be crazy good at mashing, and yes, he is. Stinky Cheese 1 is probably the crazy fastest masher you will see to shoot quick, because as you may be able to imagine, there is no turbo button in this game, so for every single shot you need to hit the shoot button once. And in conjunction with the jump button release, you need to mash two buttons alternatively. You cannot mash them at the same time, that doesn't work. So I was just thinking, he is mashing two buttons ridiculously quick at the same time. And yeah, he did. But on top of that, he also did something else that I had no idea existed at the time, and apparently everyone else in the speedrunning community knew about. If you press up and jump, or down and jump, up and shoot and down and shoot at the same frame, you shoot an additional bullet. I had no idea that existed. Once I knew that, I rebound my keys, so the jump, the up button is right next to my jump, my shoot button, and I can mash two buttons at the same time. That allowed me to get the quick kill on Mario as well, as in the really fast kill. People were kind of impressed, but I just told them I have them at the same time. So the interesting thing about that was, of course, I'm in a relatively special position that I can mash two buttons at the same time. The best speedrunner at the time, Kalemando, his mashing was not that good. But he improved it by so much that in the end he was actually faster in mashing than me. But his technique did not allow him to move around or hit more than one button at the same time, which was kind of unfortunate since he could not take advantage of hitting two buttons at the same time. So what do we do? What do we do with that? Unfortunately, there was no alternative, or was there? During that night, I actually woke up more or less after I slept for about 1 hour. I came up with the idea of rebinding the keys to down and shoot at to the same button. What that does is, every time I hit the shoot button, it also presses the down button. And now, here I come. Without having to hit two buttons, I always shoot double shots. Here I come. Which basically now means that everybody who runs this game, except me, has to rebind keys before every boss where they can take advantage of the double shot. Not all bosses allow you to take advantage of the double shots. But bosses like Mario, it is extremely important that you get a quick kill, otherwise you have to sit a bit longer through a pattern of his. So here I'm not going to get the quick kill, and this is what you have to essentially go through. It's not terribly difficult to survive, it just takes quite a while. So that's how the double shot came into existence, I guess. And as I said, I can mash two buttons at the same time. I have not enough practice anymore to get the quick kill on Mario, so I'm just doing this the slow way. But every other runner rebinds the keys, I just mash two buttons at the same time. And here we have the Mario. Fun fact, when I played this game for the first time, back then I was not streaming whatsoever, in case you're wondering. It was kind of weird because I managed to finally defeat Mario. Let me rebind my key back to normal. I finally managed to defeat Mario. And then this phase happens. That was such a shock. I was so happy that I finally managed to beat Mario, and then the second phase. I had no idea what would happen. And that was kind of difficult to deal with. Because it's not a difficult phase, you just need to know what you need to do. Either way, it's a pretty awesome game. Uh-oh. I actually messed up my pattern there. This works. Alright, that was weird. Hey, greetings Toddy and Timmy, how are you guys doing? So that was Mario. Not terribly difficult once you know what you're doing, but once again, this game is kind of difficult but if you don't know what you're doing. So, here's the thing. You may have just noticed what I did there. Over here, there's a save point. When you hit the save point and you... No, first of all, a different mechanic. In this world, VVVVVV world, you flip instead of jump, as in... It's changing gravity like the original game, so that's pretty neat of a gimmick, isn't it? However, what you can do in this world here instead is... The way flipping works is, for one frame, as soon as you flip, it will invert your gravity and not reset your position, it will just mirror your character, and if you save on the same frame that happens, you can get stuck in the floor. So what you do with that is, you shoot, get a little bit into the floor. Right now I'm slightly into the floor, and if I then get another precise flip save, it's relatively precise. If I get another really precise flip save, I would get far enough into the floor, as you may be able to tell, I'm almost through the floor. And if I'm just good enough, I can fall through the floor here. Then I'm on top of this. I can get over here. And boom. I could fall down on the left side of the screen. And all the way down to the lower area, where there is literally nothing and you fall forever. If you head far enough to the right, eventually you would arrive in a place that allows you to move on. However, I really like the VVVVV world, so I'm just going to show it off anyway, since we did a lot of speedrun tech inside this VVVVV world, which no one sees anymore in any percent runs. Have I ever thought about speedrunning VVVVV? No, not really. It's too optimized already. There's nothing I can contribute, I don't think. Either way, here... Let me explain those switch arrows first. Those switch arrows switch gravity. And that is different from when you switch gravity with jumping. What that does is, I can still jump. I can still jump here. When you see this red guy, you can jump. And if I jump, I'm now up and down. It's just kind of like normal, except I can jump. Let me get this thing real here quick. This is a timer for the boss areas. So, here's the thing. You may see that whenever I hit one of those switch gravity arrows, Boshy just flies further, as in his momentum carries him. However, if I use my double jump, he instantly switches gravity. Now, if I hold the jump button while I switch gravity, I do this momentum thing again. So essentially, as long as you still have your double jump, or the game thinks you're holding the jump button, it will carry your momentum. That way you can do a little skip here in the next screen, which carries you far enough to the left, and that's really easy, right? So that's really neat. On the other hand, if you... Now I'm going to hug the wall here on the right side, right this wall here. What that does is gives me a different alignment for this area here. I just now still have that alignment, and I can just hold right here to get over there. Let me demonstrate what happens if I don't have that alignment. Like this alignment here, for example, is not the correct one. I hold right, boom, you did. There are 3 different alignments of pixel walls in this game, and 2 of them kill you. This one here, this one is the correct one, I can just hold right, and boom, here we are. That essentially skips one up and down cycle. And we move on. So I just really like explaining those little mechanics of this world since, as I said, this is one of the worlds where we did a lot of work. By the way, the reason why I know that the world 4 skip works out, yes you can skip the entire world here, is because with Sonic, if you go to the left here and fly all the way to the left, you can get out of bounds and fall forever as well. That is how I figured that one out. Essentially I knew as soon as we would find anything that lets us fall out of bounds, I could get far enough to the right and enter the boss room immediately. And that is used in speedruns nowadays still. So, what I do here now is I hold the jump button. As mentioned earlier, the jump momentum carries through as long as I don't use the double jump or I hold the jump button. So you can skip a little portion there as well. Makes it rather easy to deal with. Are there different categories in Boshy and what are the differences? Yes, alright. There are currently 3 different categories to my knowledge. The first one, the most common one, is Dark Boshy only, no wrong warp, any percent. So yeah, as you may have guessed, there is a true any percent of I Wanna Be the Boshy, which allows you to use any character that you have unlocked, and also take advantage of a wrong warp section in the game. Oh, by the way, I kind of missed something in this area here. This is my favorite, one of my favorite sections, by the way. Once you manage to get all the way up and all the way down without dying, it feels so awesome. It's kind of difficult, as you might be able to imagine. So, let me get real quick back here. You're supposed to get over this little tiny spike here. You cannot jump, you only flip gravity. So the way you can also get through this section is you grab this alignment here, move here, tap 1 frame to the right, and land on this seam there that it does not seem to be possible to land on. It's kind of precise, and that is what we called the big drop skip. Calamando got so ridiculously... By the way, Calamando being one of the best runners of this game ever, he got so ridiculously consistent at doing this that he got it something like 3 out of 4 times every time he got here. Though that's pretty impressive, to say the least. And then we get into the Gravitron, which... It's actually easier than the VVVVVV Gravitron as in the original. However, the pattern is completely random, instead of being sectioned off like in the original. On top of that, you also need to survive the entire duration, and you don't get saves every 5 seconds. So that's kind of difficult. And also in speedruns, because that is such a huge deal to get past the Gravitron. If you don't, you lose a huge chunk of time. But if not, it was usually kind of intense if one of the better runners got into the Gravitron with a really good time so far, only to lose it to potentially Brad Gravitron pattern. Since the pattern are random, you don't never know what is going to come up. And it can be almost impossible at times to dodge those patterns unless you make really crazy good decisions really early on in the patterns. Either way, wrong warp is a thing. There are 2 versions of wrong warp. There's an old wrong warp, and there's a new one. Violante, by the way, is one of the easier bosses, casually speaking. I messed up. By the way, this is Ghastly. He helps me shooting a little bit. I forgot about him in the Mario section. Oopsie. I forgot. Wow, I have not played this game in a long time. Alright. What you would normally do is mute the music here to skip this ending cutscene where, by the way, during this ending cutscene you can die, and there used to be a wrong warp here. We are in World 4, this wrong warp would have transported you all the way to World 7. But it's no longer there. So instead you just die. But if you mute the music with Ctrl S, you get here anyways, to the next level. Woohoo! I'm just spouting on random things. We have Dark Boshy, only any percent, no wrong warp, any percent, and yes, okay, there is 100% too, sorry, I kind of cut myself off there. There's also 100% where you just play on hard-on mode to get all the treasures, all the character unlocks, and fight most of the bosses. You don't have to fight all of the bosses, more specific, I think there's actually only one boss you can skip, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, that's 100%. It's technically also 100% without wrong warps, since you could technically use them. I'm not even sure they would be useful though. But yeah, back to the wrong warps real quick. There are two versions of the wrong warp. There's an old version, which was patched out by the creator of the game, because it was so easy to do, I imagine. And that version worked as follows. Whenever you go into the character select screen, the game would reset you at the current position where you are saved in. However, it would reset you to the current position you are saved in the current world. That sounds right? It's not quite right though. The reason why that's not quite right is because you could save in a position and then go to another world, go into the character select screen, and suddenly you are in a completely different position in the same world that you're currently in. Which essentially allows you to get to really weird places that you should not be in. That is the short version about that. So, wrong warp allows you to go into the teleporter room, which... the teleporter room is just... well, you can freely go between worlds at the end of each stage if you want to. You can also go to the bosses if you really want to. So what you would normally do is, once you get to the end of a stage, you enter the boss room runs to unlock the teleporter for the boss room, and then you go into the teleporter room to have easier access into the teleporter. Since most of the time, if you get to the end of the world, you still have to jump over a spike or get through a tunnel or something like that in order to actually get into the boss fight itself. That is easier to be accessed through the teleporter room, so that's kind of nice. At the very end of the teleporter room, or of the teleporter, there is also a boss rush, as in, as soon as you complete the game, you get access to the boss rush. The boss rush is essentially, you can see how many deaths it takes you and how much time it takes you to beat all the bosses once again. Which sounds pretty awesome, doesn't it? It's actually really handy for practicing bosses in speedruns. However, for wrong warps it has a secondary use. It allows you to go into the warp of the boss, even if you have not unlocked the boss yet. So what you do is you wrong warp into the boss rush section of the teleporter room, you unlock the boss, go back into the normal section of the teleporter room. Let's see. And then you just beat the boss normally. You can do this as early as World 1 teleporter room. By the way, in case you're wondering, that is what I discovered. One of those things that I discovered. So, by the way, here we have Sonic. Sonic is, for many, the hardest boss of the entire game. I disagree, I think Solen is more difficult. But nonetheless, many people that have managed to get it to Sonic, which by the way is difficult in itself, as in that's no easy feat to get to Sonic. they just straight up give up on Sonic, because unlike other bosses, you cannot just look up what you need to do on Sonic. Okay, that's the hardest jump in the game, avoiding that eyeball. I'm not even kidding. It's the most precise thing in the entire game. Either way, getting to Sonic is reasonably achievable. It's not easy, but it's reasonable. But once you get to Sonic, you have to learn how to control Sonic. And that is a huge task, as in, his movement is entirely based on your position relative to his position, and he kind of orbits your position. I'm not sure what the correct word for that is, but it's really difficult to get a handle of it, how you manipulate him properly so he doesn't gain 2 speed and then rushes into your Boshy position. While all that, you need to dodge bombs that are thrown down from the Dr. Robotnik above. Oh, whoopsie. So it's a really difficult fight. Every other boss, you can just look up what happens. If you want to do that. I didn't look up anything. So, for me, another boss was actually more difficult casually. And that was Mega Man. Because at some point, I got a pretty good handle on how Sonic works, and he started to become my favorite boss actually. I really like fighting Sonic at this point. Because it's just kind of, once you know how he works, you can recover from really bad spots, and yay. The boss later on, Mega Man, after this world, as in the end boss after this one here, is an entirely different beast. He is the exact opposite. He is all pattern. As long as you're learning the pattern and strictly execute by the pattern, you win. Which is really difficult for me, since I'm terrible at memorizing stuff. Plus, it's a really long boss fight on top of that against Mega Man, so you get to a new section, you die because you don't know the pattern, which can be really irritating. It's Boshy time! Hey Wings, how are you doing? There is a tool-assisted speedrun of Boshy. I'm not sure whether they optimized it by now, but the first tool-assisted speedrun they created of Boshy, I think that was by X-Widget actually, who earlier hosted me. It was really nicely done, however, there were quite a few things that he just didn't know that you could optimize. He was not a speedrunner of this game, and so he did not know all the little things that you could do in the tool-assisted speedrun settings. Plus, creating a tool-assisted speedrun of I Wanna Be the Boshy is really tedious, because you need to have a kind of crazy setup so it doesn't, and it still crashes and desyncs all the time apparently. I've never tried it myself. Oh come on, this is not the difficult section after the eyeball jump. Let me drink something real quick. Oh yeah, by the way, true any percent is not really something that has an actual record in it. I don't think anyone bothered to optimize it to the extent. I believe I don't have the record for the true any percent run anymore, so someone, I think, just decided to casually, as in one of the better speedruns, decided to casually get a better time than me, just so I wouldn't have it anymore, I guess. So there we go, finally. That took me way too long. By the way, jump scare is ahead. If you are not feeling well with jump scares, there is a jump scare ahead. But before that, let me demonstrate something else. That is what Calamando actually figured this one here out. If you wedge yourself into the wall on the left, you can get up here really easily, and that is, by the way, 100% strategy to get to this chest over here, which displays boss health. Was it Illusion or PBF? I don't know who it was. Why 50%, 50 FPS? Oh yeah, that's a good point. Let me demonstrate this to you real quick. If you change your frames per second, your frame rate, it's not just the frame rate that changes, as you may be able to tell. FPS is not really FPS, it is how fast the game runs, to be more precise. So 100 FPS is literally double the speed. So you never change your FPS in a speedrun setting whatsoever, you just do the normal thing. Because if you try to do this, the global timer of certain things is still the same. So if you think, oh, I can run this game at 60 FPS, right? You can't. The blocks, the disappearing blocks at the first world are almost impossible to get past at 60 FPS. I actually did that myself, by the way. It's almost impossible to get past those blocks at 60 FPS. Not impossible, but it's ridiculously difficult. So all speedruns and all runs are done on... By the way, the boss is jump scare. On the 50 FPS. By the way, the fastest I think Gravitron has been done is at 110 FPS by VVVVVV, if I'm not mistaken. I tried to do it faster, but I couldn't get it done. A lethal frag ferret indeed. So yeah, lethal frag, by the way. Here's a fun story. Lethal frag started playing Boshy well after I started playing Boshy myself. By the way, this is another skip here. It's kind of tricky to do, but not difficult. I messed up actually, I need to redo this. So Lethal Frag started playing Boshy after I started playing. Fairly long time after I started playing. So he is the type of person who just sticks to the game and finishes it. Despite this being so ridiculously difficult. At the time, I was nowhere near finished. By the way, this skips the Gradius section. Over there, and you can just go on. Let me show you this Gradius section. Lethal Frag is the kind of guy who just sticks to the game and he finishes it. And that was crazy impressive to me. At the time when Lethal Frag started playing, I was stuck on Mega Man. And then when I saw him progressing reasonably quickly at the game, I decided, hey, I wonder whether I can pick up the game as well again. And well, that's exactly what I did. I picked up the game again. And I started, well, playing through it. So by the time I reached the final boss, Solen, I decided, wow, this is kind of a monstrosity. I finally got past Mega Man, but now I need to deal with this monstrosity, and I just kind of stopped playing for a while. More specifically, Lethal Frag eventually caught up, got to Solen and started grinding out the Solen boss fight. That was really impressive to me, because Solen is a genuinely crazy difficult boss fight. And eventually, he managed to defeat Solen. I decided to return back to the game, basically being motivated by Lethal Frag's complete playthrough of this, and I beat Solen. Solen was the final boss, and I defeated him. So here's the thing. There are online leaderboards for I Wanna Beat the Boshy. If you manage to beat the game, you can enter your name onto that online leaderboard unless you have ever used Sonic or you ever went online in your game. Apparently in my very first playthrough, I pressed F12 at some point, and that means you are online. It's that simple. So that means I was not legible to get onto the leaderboard. I really wanted to get onto that leaderboard because I think it's kind of prestigious to having beaten the game, as in that was kind of my pride, so to speak. So there was nothing else I can do outside of actually beating the game a second time, and so I decided to go ahead and do that. Let me rebind my keys again. So yeah, I decided to go ahead and do that. I wanna beat Boshy a second time, and interestingly enough, it only took me 2 weeks to arrive back at the final boss again. And for me, in my very second playthrough, the most amazing thing happened. I arrived at the final boss, Solen, and I beat him first try. I was so ecstatic about that that I didn't even mind that I accidentally went online even in my second playthrough as well. And I could not get onto the leaderboards again. But I was so happy about beating the Solen on the first try in my second playthrough. I just played through the game again. This time it only took me 2 days to get through the entire game. And it's kind of amazing how much you struggle and struggle and struggle, and then you finally beat certain bosses, like Sonic. But then, out of nowhere on your second playthrough, you just kind of know how to do it. And since you've done it already once, that kind of shaking when you almost get the kill, is gone. And that contributes a huge portion to how much ridiculously easier it is to not die to the final boss a second time. Or to defeat the bosses way quicker. And no, Kezox, you don't switch FPS in a speedrun whatsoever. Essentially, as community we agreed that all speedruns are done on 50 FPS. That would just be a huge mess to change FPS all the time, and also kind of a really huge headache. And so yeah, that's kind of the story about how I got into Boshy. Because, well, after my third playthrough, where I finally got onto the leaderboards... let me up there. On my third playthrough, when I finally got onto the leaderboards... Shout out to JC, who didn't know you can shoot those dolls. When I finally got onto the leaderboards, I noticed something else that just changed apparently in I Wanna Be the Boshy. What changed was specifically... there was a new boss. The previously Bomberman boss of the 8th world has been removed and was replaced with another one, and that was Ganon. I was really curious about the Ganon boss. I decided to go and pay him a visit. I beat Ganon in about 30 minutes. It was not a difficult boss, but a really enjoyable one at that. By the way, seizure warning if you... I should have said that before, sorry. Ganon was not a difficult boss, as I started to figure out the pattern, how he works, etc. And I was curious who else might have beaten Ganon, since I had no idea that it was literally just released that day. I went onto Twitch, looked for I Wanna Be the Boshy, and I saw a certain Kalamandu play I Wanna Be the Boshy, and sure enough, he was actually exactly on Ganon, which is the boss of the 8th world. Alongside Kalamandu, there were also other people such as Shadowling. I don't know the number behind Shadowlink, but he is a crazy good game player. As in, he's ridiculously good. Without much practice, he consistently beat my times. And there was also someone that we now know as Fate, and I believe there are at least 2 or 3 more other people that I forgot that used to be part of the, well, what then turned out to be the speedrunning community of I Wanna Be the Boshy. At first, I was just starting to figure out, hey, Kalamandu is speedrunning this, that's awesome. But he's not doing this screen optimal. Hey, Kalamandu, I can show you how you can do this screen here a bit better. And that's kind of how I got into speedrunning. Then I started to figure, hey, there are so many screens where you could optimize stuff. I just invested so much time into I Wanna Be Boshy, more and more into optimizing the speedrun, more and more. And eventually, well, that's just kind of how far we got. By the way, another screamer warning as a spider. As soon as I go to the right, it's going to be the spider, so turn down your volume. Oopsie, I messed up. And greetings, RTB. Yeah, you already missed Secret of Mana, sorry. And also greetings, Takasa TV, how are you doing? So yeah, that is how I got into speedrunning. I wanted to do the Boshy. Essentially, it appears that I was probably the first person to beat Ganon ever, so to speak. And Calamandri and the others were kind of struggling with Ganon. Even after, I don't know, an hour or so, he couldn't beat him, and so I started giving him some tips about how the pattern, when he can do what, etc. Later on, Solen rebalanced Ganon a fair bit again, so he would be a little bit more fair, as in not just outright stupid in times. And right now, Ganon is a really awesome boss fight. Unfortunately, Solen actually forgot to remove a developer key, so the actual speedrun of Ganon is kind of, well, you mash the developer key button to kill him easily and quickly. That is the short version for Ganon. Doing well, glad to hear that. By the way, apparently this pattern here is always the same on a specific computer, but always different on different computers. It's kind of weird. So here, by the way, we have the introduction of wall jumps. We will see them in World 10 a little bit more. Alright, we got it. That was one of probably the hardest section of this world here. Everything here is triggered by jumping, whether those things are solid, the grey bars, or not. The spikes moving is triggered by jumping, so it's not random. Whenever I jump, they move. Or it's also not pattern, it's just when I hit the jump button, as you can see. Oopsie. Oh, it's all on me to not get killed by those things. With the exception of the bottom right spikes, yeah, that is. Oopsie. This is not even a difficult section. I'm just goofing off right now, it seems. There we go, finally. Shout out to Fate, who just told us, hey guys, why do you jump onto this thing? You can't just jump over here. Oops. Oh, hey Fate, how are you doing? I think that was you, right? Glitchless? I'm using double shots. I mean, I can use glitchless on this guy. Sure, let's use glitchless. So, by the way, there is a quick kill on Mega Man that saves about, I don't know, a minute. Oh, I forgot that if I don't use double shot, I'm not that quick. So, Mega Man, from my least favorite boss in my casual playthrough, because I'm terrible at patterns, went to one of my favorite bosses in the speedrun. Because I figured out how to kill Ringman, the guy on top, pretty quickly. Let me see whether I actually find this thing. Honestly, you're making this really difficult for me. Alright, I got it. There's a very precise spot where you can stand to not get killed. Oh, whoopsie. I forgot about that spot. And greetings, Bandit Keith TV, how are you doing? And also Fate, how are you doing? Good morning. Either way, if you use the double shot glitch, you can't kill Mega Man on that Danmaku gigantic attack. And just mash, and if you deal enough damage, you can kill him there. Either way, my favorite portion about Mega Man nowadays is how you efficiently and quickly kill the robot masters that you have to kill to advance the phase. So this guy here, if you just jump properly and mash properly, you can kill him before he becomes dangerous. And then, with or without double shot, if you kill him at the good timing, you will get a second good pattern. Essentially, the timer of the boss starts as soon as you enter this area. Which means, if I mash properly... Oh, whoops. I can kill... I can make Ringman appear at the exact time where he will not shoot a ring to the top left area where I'm standing, and that makes it completely safe for me to stand there and shoot bullets at him while he is passing by, and that increases my damage on him tremendously to a ridiculous amount. And that is one of those strategies that I came up with, because the standard strategy, if you play casually, you just kind of, you kill Bombman at the bottom first, because that's easy to do, and then it takes you ages to then subsequently also kill Ringman, because you never know when he's going to shoot in the corner or when he is going to shoot, etc., and so it just takes a long time. Oh, whoops. You jump onto the left here if you try to get a quick kill. There we go, that should be fine. Alrighty. For this guy you just need to know where to stand. I always forget where, every time I come here again. Same with this guy, you just need to know where to stand. That was not where I needed to stand. Show me that again, please. Ready to see me lose the error of this game? I'm sorry. That's a long time ago. Okay, I know where to stand now again. I completely forgot about that. Don't I want to kill the Camellia? I'm still on the Solen fight in that, ironically. I have not yet bothered to play the game again. So by the way, this was the wrong timing. I killed the Ringman too early, which means Ringman was just a little bit too late there, and he started shooting a ring into the corner. This one was a good timing. This time Ringman will not shoot into the corner, and I can just mash him to death right there. By the way, you can only mash him to death with double shot. Right there. Otherwise it takes an additional pass. This should work. Ah! I usually take a little side step to the right to increase my value where, well, I can't possibly stand. But I started stepping to the right a little bit too early. There we go, this should work. Ah! Wow. Why is this so difficult all of a sudden? Oh well. Either way, that dragon, by the way, we saw last time, you just stand in the correct spot and he will never hit you. And then you just finish off Mega Man. Let me try to get the quick kill instead. Maybe I'll do it. It's kind of unlikely actually. Because my mashing by far not as good anymore as it used to be. Especially not this game. I'm way out of practice. Nope, 6 HP left. On the left it's ridiculously difficult to survive. Not impossible, but ridiculously difficult. That is 4 damage more than I had before. So now I messed this up. Now getting up to Ringman is actually kind of tricky. Because that's kind of what happens, he shoots in the corner. Sometimes. Oh. I missed 3 shots there, and so I couldn't shoot anymore. That's bad. I survived. Well, maybe we'll get to see the entire fight anyways. There we go. I think this should work. The risk is standing too far to the left compared to standing too far to the right. How do you walk backwards? Oh yeah, that's something I didn't explain it. How you walk backwards is the following. You can only do that to the right, by the way. As in, you hold right, and then while you're holding right, you press left at the same time. You cannot do this on controllers naturally. As in, I just hold right and I hold left at the same time. So I shoot backwards, or move backwards. You cannot do this to the right. You can slow walk to the left. You cannot do this to the left. You can slow walk to the left. If you press right 1 frame after you press left. Or slow walk to the right if you press right 1 frame after, left 1 frame after the right, etc. It's kind of difficult to do precisely. But that is how we walk backwards. By the way, whenever you jump onto those things, they toggle your double jump, which means if you had a double jump when you bounce on those, you will not have it anymore. It's really weird. But yeah, moonwalking is crazy useful in this game, which is also why controller players have an inherent disadvantage. We allow controller players to bind an additional button to left or right for them to be able to moonwalk, since we use that readily and often on keyboard, but it is naturally a lot more difficult for them to execute moonwalking. Which, by the way, on that note, we have one high-level player, or had I guess, on controller, and that is Cosmic Sense. Cosmic Sense is one of those people that he is crazy good at this type of game. He is crazy good at ridiculously difficult platformer games, and he just, well, it doesn't seem like he practiced much, but I think he practiced at least some off stream, and whenever he streamed, he essentially more or less destroyed anyone else's time, except for the other top runners. He is ridiculously good at this. It might help you against Ryu. Oh yeah, that might really help you against Ryu. It's definitely very useful. Good luck with that. If you are planning or playing Boshy already yourself casually, just be aware that death is not a failure state in this game. It is a means to progress. Through deaths you will learn what not to do, or you will just build up some muscle memory, and eventually you will beat it. That was not so safe that what I just did there. So yeah, just be patient and you will eventually beat this game. Sure, being good at games helps you, but for the most part, most people have the same struggles as you do. There are maybe a few exceptions like Woodwick or Cosmic Sense, who seem to be just that good at games that they don't struggle nearly as long as others. By the way, one thing I say is, if you cannot mash properly, as in quickly, don't be afraid to use some device that gives you turbo. I don't think that's anything shameful whatsoever. Obviously in speedruns we are not allowed to use turbo devices, but just for casual playthrough, why not use turbo? I think that is okay. Because not everyone can mash particularly well, and especially against Ryu, where there is the dulcim in the transition phase, which you need to mash so fast, as in it appears that you need to mash so crazy fast to be able to, well, get past that phase. It is kind of ridiculous to expect that of casual players. Almost. So that's what I say. Don't be afraid to use turbo in specific instances if you have to. Because the most difficult portions are really the platforming and then getting the boss patterns down. Maybe on Solgrin you don't necessarily want to use turbo at first to be able to get past his first phase too easily, but beyond that, I think it's not a bad thing. Either way, it's up to you. You can't imagine this game for being for casual players. Actually, let's put it this way. It is kind of for casual players if this is the kind of casual experience you enjoy. It is for me. I really enjoy ridiculously high difficulty games. Oops, I messed that up. But that is just me. I definitely see why a lot of people don't necessarily like this kind of difficulty. And that is fine, it's not for everybody, obviously. But personally, for me, I love this kind of crazy high difficulty, where you have to work for your victory. You cannot just grind on enemies like you can in RPGs to increase your character's power. To get past, you have to get better as yourself as the player. That is really appealing to me. But yeah, it's definitely not for everybody. By the way, this blood splatter here is random.
Flawless victory. Finish him.
And the blood splatter is one of the big random portions of I Wanna Be the Boshy. Shang Tsung is one of the more awesome bosses to play casually, in my opinion, since it's really awesome to be able to weave in between his attacks and learn how to dodge everything. Compared to other bosses, he is not as difficult. It may look crazy, but it's really not that difficult once you get the hang of it. But it's just awesome to play. I think Shang Tsung is a good example of a boss well designed for this kind of crazy experience. But for speedruns, unfortunately, because his blood splatter is so random and it has a reasonably high chance to straight up kill you, it can be kind of frustrating to, well, run the game when you just randomly get killed by blood that comes at 1000 miles per hour from off screen down onto you. Alrighty. I mean, it can be, let's put it this way, Boshy is kind of infamous for being ridiculously, stupidly difficult, and so it can be kind of a motivation to just beat it because it is that kind of stupid difficulty. But not everybody enjoys this kind of difficulty, and if it's just for the prestige of being able to say, hey, I've beat this stupid difficult game, I'm not sure that is the best way to handle this. If it's just for that. I really would say if you enjoy this kind of difficulty, you want to play it. I'm stuck in the wall here, I've not seen that one before. The blocks are actually not invisible. The gimmick of the previous room was that the room is mirrored on the right side, where everything was visible. Oh, that's awkward. There we go. That's what you want to do. So yeah, everything in this game has a pretty much logical solution to it. And greetings, Venustus. I've spent so much time in this game. Of course I make it look easy. So. Let's put it this way. If you spend... This is one of the few games where I easily invested more than 500 hours into it. Just for speedrunning and optimization. And I'm not even good at speedrunning this myself. I just liked optimizing this game. But yeah, it's by no means as easy as I make it look, or, well, let's put it this way, as I said, speedrunning wise, I am one of the weaker runners. So if you want to see someone who makes it look really easy, you should watch Illusion, or one of Calamander's old runs, or Widwick's runs. They make this look truly easy. By no means as easy as it actually is. By the way, these are just puzzle rooms. Whee! By the way, there's going to be a spider again in the room above here, so turn down your volume if you would like to save your ears. Just saying, as soon as I jump up here, there's going to be a spider. 3, 2, 1... Oopsie, I messed up. Oh, by the way, here's the introduction to the wall jumps again. Basically, wall jumps are like... You slide slowly down on walls, and you can jump off of them with really high speed, as in, they essentially double your speed to the other side. And they allow you to get to much greater distances. Also, as long as you keep the speed, as in you don't go against it, well, you don't lose that speed. And that is actually important for a section in the next world. Let me just save here. This run not even 2 hours. How hard can it be? Oh, I remember when I did races against Fate. Fate, by the way, was one of the first speedrunners of this game. I remember when we did races, and we both struggled for at least 100 deaths for hours to beat the last boss. It was crazy. So, by the way, this is Ganon. His pattern is really interesting, and he is essentially the reason as to why I found the other speedrunning people of this game, because that is essentially when I first saw them play the game themselves. I also beat the game at the boss before them, apparently, at least to my knowledge. And the awesome portion is, Ganon has something like 5 or 6 abilities, I don't know exactly, and he cannot use the same one again until he used up all of his other abilities. Further, he cannot use specific abilities after he uses other ones. For example, that Link attack, he can not normally use it right after he summons the Gorons on the left and right, except when it's his last available attack. What he does in that case is, he will just teleport twice instead of only once. That is the pattern he does. So you can... The more attacks he does, the more you can expect what he is going to do next. And it's also kind of easy to recognize what he's doing. He cannot spawn in all places, depending on which attacks he has left over to use. So that's that. I really like this boss fight. Originally it used to be not quite as tweaked that he could do more attacks after other attacks and make almost impossible scenarios. And there's that. So, other than that, there's another way to cheese this boss. So if you press 1 on your keyboard, I just had pressing 1. He initiates this attack. Whenever I press 1, he will summon Gorons. However, because that Goron summoning takes a while, you can just hit 1 over and over and over again and just kind of defeat him while he's trying to do that. You just mash both shoot and the other attack and he will die. Goodbye. Yes, exactly where to follow. There is that exploit. I don't know who found that, by the way. It's technically a programmer button to test attacks, but that he forgot to remove. So, yeah, there's that. So, now, probably my favorite word at this point, with all those wall jumps. Here, you skip this save, because it's way easier to skip the save than actually take it. Because as long as you have wall jump speed, getting past this jumpy guy here on the right, this guy, is way easier. If you don't have wall jumping speed anymore, it is way difficult. By the way, I hit this X thingy, and that opened up this little red wall here. That is going to be relevant later on, because if I didn't die until that red stuff comes up later in the level, that would mean, if I didn't die, I would not have to press that X thing again in order to progress. More specifically, it's somewhere right after this section. Actually, 2 more saves. I'll point it out again. Either way, you save about, I don't know, 20 to 30 to 40 seconds if you don't die in this world whatsoever. So essentially, the high-level speedruns, if they die once in this world, it can mean for a really huge time loss for them. It's kind of crazy how punishing deaths are in this specific world. Just casually playing through this world is really awesome, by the way. Oops. Oopsie. By the way, there is a drop that you could do, if you're lucky, because those guys kind of move random. And you can try to do this. But you need to get really lucky. Or you need to be like 2-assisted speedrun, that works too. Okay, I'm not going to try that. The slow and secure way to do this is just wait until they are moving, and you can skip the last guy. So here on the right side you can see that wall that I was talking about. If you manage to get here without dying from the previous X button, you could just straight out skip that wall and you would be already in the next room without having to do anything more. Which, I've gotten that skip in a few times in one of my speedruns, but I've never been consistent at it. Come on. This lower section is not even that difficult once you have a strategy for it. It's just, I'm terrible at jumping through this. Oh, by the way, there's that mini spike. You have 1 pixel or so to not die to it and be able to jump up. It's kind of crazy. And here is the next X button. If you don't... This is the next big one. from here to the last, very last screen, you don't want to die, because then you save, I think, 20 seconds? 30? Something like that. It's a long time you save. So that is the big one. It's a shame because it's really fun. Oh, the Ganon boss fight. I agree. I like the Ganon boss fight. Although it did reward people that are good mashing. Which someone may not be, or may not have been. Oops. So I already died now, so I do not get that last skip. This room, by the way, is one of the big random factors. The star following you is always the same pattern as long as you are doing the same stuff. But the one from the ceiling dropping, they are random. And so they can just completely cut you off and kill you if you are unlucky. This guy here, he always has the exact same pattern. But even casually, I figured out that, hey, I don't want to do this entire thing, so you can just skip him halfway through. I've later done this as an, even after I was already starting to speedrun this game normal way, which is way harder than just skipping half of his attacks here. You can just jump here and goodbye. And this is the section I was talking about. You cannot stop, otherwise you lose your wall jump speed. I love this section here. It's really awesome. It's not even difficult. You just need to get used to it and figure out what to do. By the way, when I say it's not even difficult, I mean in comparison to other things in this game. Oopsie. Whee! This last section is so awesome once you have it down and you can do it without dying too much. I just love it. Because it's a chase section. Of course you need to go fast. And if you get somewhat consistent at it, it's just so really neat. I like it. What are my controls? I use the arrow keys for left, right, up and down. Actually, I use arrow keys for left, right and up movement specifically. I use numpad 4 to jump. I use numpad 5 to shoot. And I use numpad 6 to press down. So shoot and down button are right next to each other, that way I can double shot without trouble. Without having to rebind keys. And numpad 9 is my reset button. The reason why I don't use numpad 1 and 2 is because at some point in my keyboard decided to not work anymore with those buttons. As in, that's literally the reason. 1 and 2, or more specifically 2, my original jump button started to stop working. As in, it stopped working properly. So I just went one row higher. The reason why I have this arrangement, by the way, is on one hand I was just really used to it, but later on it's actually extremely useful. In many boss fights, very frequently I decide to reach over with my left hand and help jumping. So I can just fully focus on mashing only with my right hand instead. That makes it way easier for me. Because normally I jump both with the right hand and shoot with the right hand. Which, by the way, some players just use the up arrow or jump button, I guess, for jumping. Which I could never jump with my left hand, that just doesn't work. As in, at least not for platforming. But for boss fight specific sections, I can do that. How do I mash so fast with only one button? That's a technique, I'm not sure whether it even has a name. Basically, you're just wiggling your... No, you're just stressing your... What's the word? I'm just stressing my entire arm, and then it starts vibrating, because that's kind of what it does if you stress it too much, in a sense. And I started to learn how to use that vibration of my entire arm to do matching. Which is also why it's so difficult for me to jump and mash at the same time. So that's why I reach over with my left hand to jump. As soon as I still mash and jump, you can see me slow down on the movement, or it's becoming rather imprecise. That's why I'm so slow usually. Try attack. Try attack is the slowest attack of missing now. You don't want to see it. The optimal pattern, if you are crazy good at mashing, I'm just good at mashing, not crazy good, is splash into wrap, I believe. Splash into recovery, sorry. Recovery is where Messigno recovers some HP. Unless your mashing is really good, he will actually recover more than you can damage him. But with double shot and good mashing, you can damage him easily enough that you can kill him during the second attack, if his first attack was splash here. Splash is really nice because you can hit him twice, during his splash attack and then later on. By the way, listen to this. It's so weird, isn't it? So what happens there is, as soon as Boshy dies, it counts as the same as the boss final death. And the weird thing about that is that it shortens the animation. I will explain this soon. It shortens the animation for how the boss finally completely dies. So it's really weird about that. So the quickest way to complete missing after you defeat him is just to die yourself immediately. So you just press Q to die immediately, usually. In a serious speedrun, that is. I just wanted to show off the double. No! Either way, what did I do just earlier in this world? So, there is what we call safe hovering in this game. Safe hovering is kind of special in the sense that it requires a very specific setup for the world to be programmed specifically or set up. So, for each level or world, you have a very specific way how Boshy spawns into the world. Because for one frame, you will be usually in the very first screen, right in front of a save point or just somewhere over there. What that means for you is that if you have a character who can shoot and hit the save point from the default spawn position, you can actually save as soon as you land, or as soon as you reset again, regardless of where your position on screen is. What that means for you is that, specifically in this world with Dark Boshy or with Nyan Cat, this character here, shout out to Fate, who holds the 9% cat percent record. With Nyan Cat you can safe hover in this world. Safe hovering is quite useful because it allows you to just do this. Whee! By the way, this is slower than taking the normal route, I just wanted to show this off. Nine cat away! Once again, this is slower than actually doing it normally. But it's awesome. So either way, this is what we call safe hovering. Oh yeah, I guess I should have said seizure warning. Sorry about that. You can do this, once again here, you skip this tower here. So here's a fun fact. You normally are supposed to go in here, obviously, and then you just go through the entire tower. The thing is, this is something like a 1.5 minute auto-scroller if you don't die, and it's kind of difficult, so it's fairly likely that you actually do die. So yeah, it's a thing, I guess. So for that matter, let's do it. Because I also really like the music in here. Since you don't usually get to see the tower in a speedrun setting anymore. So, the thing is, even without safe hovering, there was technically a frame perfect position, a frame and pixel perfect position to weigh and to save. As in, I think it was something like pixel and double frame perfect to do this. To be able to save just high enough to be able to jump over the tower naturally without having to do any safe hovering. So, what we just did initially in original speedruns, we did the tower normally, like you're supposed to do. Which is kind of difficult. By the way, fun fact. In this tower there are 2 save points only at the very bottom, and this one here, just up there, on hard-on mode, as in the second highest difficulty. In this difficulty here, there are 2 more save points later after this save point here, which makes it significantly easier in comparison, as in it's more than twice as difficult for the harder difficulty. And honestly, I preferred it that way, because I really like that difficulty. So the way the plant works at the bottom, it spawns at specific heights when you reach the tower. Secret content unlocked. Nice. It spawns at specific heights in the tower, and you just need to memorize when it spawns, because you always need to dodge it. It will spawn in one of 3 positions. Oops, I messed that up. It will spawn left, right, or center. It always depends where you are on screen, as in if I jump to the left at the beginning, next plant will spawn on the left instead of the right. So you always have to dodge it, no matter what. Oopsie. So yeah, I could just jump to the left here. I just always jump to the right because that's what I'm used to. I forgot. So you can, by the way, shoot that safe point to the left without having to get over there. You can just shoot it right there. I'm not sure, I think you can do that with all characters. Oh, here's the thing. In the middle, I need to wait just a little bit so the plant spawns in the middle instead of on the right. Otherwise that doesn't work. So even in casual playthrough you have to use spawn manipulation in this game. It's pretty awesome. But yeah. My first playthrough was on the, as I said, hard-on mode difficulty. That is what it is called. You wait here on the right to spawn it on the right again. And honestly, I think if you like this kind of game, and you're not just doing it for the prestige, play it on hard-on mode, because that's how it is meant to be played. Whee! By the way, fun fact, if you land here and you miss the ride up, you can't just do this if you're too scared to jump back to the left. And there we are. And here we are in the final section. You know where this music comes from? It is from a game called Terranigma. Terranigma was only released in Europe and Japan, which means the poor Americans lost out on an amazing Super Nintendo RPG. And fun fact, I'm going to be running Terranigma right after this game. I maybe take a 5 to 10 minute break, and then I will do a Terranigma run. The Terranigma run will be on the Japanese version, because Japanese is the only NTSC release of the Terranigma game, which means all the other regions or versions are literally straight up slower because they run at lower frame rate. So and here we have Solen. Solen is interesting, because you just have to survive him for a really long time, and then another long time until you defeat him. I cannot even do this normally anymore, can I? So, for Solen, this is phase 1. It is extremely intimidating once you get here, but if your mashing is good enough, you can straight up kill Solen right there by just, well, mashing well. However, it is highly unlikely that, let's say, a more casual player can match that well, and especially the jumping pattern is also kind of tight to do. So this, by the way, is the big reason, I forgot to little missing, whatever. This is the big reason as to why this was a huge roadblock for someone like Kalamandu, whose mashing was really not that good. For a long time he did the entire phase 1 without being able to skip this phase here. So he throws some oat at you. By the way, this is a gigantic oatmeal box, in case you're wondering what that is. Then he summons Sonic, then you have to dodge some more stuff while Sonic is jumping at you. Then he does 5 teleports, which, by the way, this is the only unfair attack in the game. He can teleport right on top of you, and there's absolutely no way to avoid it. Everything else, technically speaking, you can avoid it, even if it's almost impossible at times. But the teleport track, you literally can't do anything about it. That is still the only thing I would like to have changed in this game. And then you finally get to this phase where you can shoot him again. But, once again, you just shoot him properly, and you essentially skip most of that phase 1. Right there. I didn't even use double shot this time, by the way. It's just quick shooting allows you to do this. Yeah, not all attacks are dodgeable. That is true. So, phase 2. Ah, I messed up. By the way, my very first kill was with Sagat. Why? All characters have the same hitbox in this game. However, the spawn position of the bullets and the size of them is different. Sagat allowed me to do the quick kill even on my first playthrough. And mind you, I did play Solen for long enough. As in, I fought this boss in phase 1 for long enough. To be able to complete phase 1, as in, I don't think I could complete phase 1 in any reasonable amount of time anymore. But with Sagat, I was able to quick kill phase 1. That is, by the way, before I knew anything about that game, speedrunning wise whatsoever, because speedruns were not a thing after I completed my first playthrough. So I just straight out quick killed him and skipped most of phase 1, which made it way easier. The reason why I did this, by the way, is because of those telefrags. I got so annoyed that I played phase 1 for 1.5 minutes and then I just got cheap shotted by the teleportation ability. Here, if I shoot properly, I can deplete Solen's health bar on the top to 0 during this first initial thing. However, I would still need to survive and deplete his shield by leading those bullets that spawn towards his shield. As in, that's the goal of phase 2. You need to lead those bullets that spawn into his shield, which is one of the more difficult things to do in this boss fight. At least doing consistently, in my opinion. Everything else is rather easy once you practice it enough. This one here, I'm still not good at it. There we go. If you deplete his health bar fully, you can skip the entire last phase. By the way, this is not the last phase. This is always patterned no matter what. There's nothing you can do about this fight until you survive all those attacks. That was almost a bit early. Nom 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 nom. It's just, by the way, this is a bit poor design in my opinion, because this is purely memorization. You just memorize what he does in the last phase, and once you have a plan on what to do with those, you win essentially. The last phase is always a 100% guarantee, as long as you are not messing up your jumps and stuff. Well, I guess this one is technically the last phase. So this one is the last phase. I think I should be in position. Yeah, I am. Alrighty. If you are far enough to the left, the bullets will despawn before they are off screen. So that means I am completely and 100% safe here on the left side. That was the last big discovery before we figured out the double shot mechanic and being able to kill Solen in phase 2 essentially. And this is the last pattern. If you survive it until this airplane phase, you're basically good to go. You kind of win the game. And you shoot him. GG. No. Oh no, it's not all memorization. A lot of them are pattern and just playing the game well, learning to get better, stuff like that. Most I want to be the guy games are actually more like randomness. This one here I think is the most well designed game where it's just a really nice balance between difficulty being reasonable but still being really difficult. As in, it's not unreasonable to beat this game, so to speak. It's just really difficult. You are afraid I miss a bit. My PP is about 50 minutes faster than that. Either way, that was I Wanna Be the Boshy. Don't worry, one. Fate knows that. Down, down, down. Alrighty, that was a little excursus into I Wanna Be the Boshy. Next up we have Terranigma. Terranigma is very different from this game. As I said, it's an action RPG that was never released in America. And so I usually tend to put a lot of emphasis on explaining the story while we are running through the game on top of it, since there are no big sequence breaks in Terranigma. And I'm not a terribly good speedrunner at that. On top of that, I'm not practiced anymore. So, yeah. Are there any save points that can kill in Wanna Be the Boshy? Yes. All of them shoot back at you when you shoot them. By the way, the mouse cursor slowly moves towards you. Solen said he implemented the killing mouse cursor after he was annoyed that players just kept the mouse cursor on screen all the time when they did streaming or some, well, playing. So he just implemented the mouse cursor thing that kills you once it reaches you. That was pretty fantastic to realize that. By the way, it can technically game over here, but you don't actually lose. You thought it was hilariously cruel and the wanted that a final save point can kill you. It's not just the final save point, it's even the credits actually kill you. But yeah, that's not wrong. One of the worst credit songs? I like it, it's pretty neat. It's basically, you finally win. And no matter whether you like the song itself or not, it's just kind of that relief when you finally manage to beat it. Because, let's put it this way, on your first casual playthrough, you spent hours and hours trying to just get through this game. If you're doing it like me, going through it blindly without looking up any strategies or boss stuff or glitches that help you with that for that matter, it becomes a project really. As in, I think it took me something like 60, 70 hours total in my first playthrough. I don't know what it was. It was a long time. I remember it being about 1,400 deaths just on the final boss alone. Solen has the most out-of-place credits music ever. It's weird, yeah. But I don't think it's terrible. It's just weird. Oh, alright. Here on the right side you can see this block disappears when you play it on the higher difficulty. Those things here disappear if you pick up the items. And the mouse cursor never disappears if you leave it on screen until it kills you. Well, that's that. Thank you, Seven. So, that was I Wanna Be the Boshy. Let me introduce you now